Hello, my name is Michael Seibold, and this is my video presentation of my exhibition. My partner and I, George Kai, we are doing an exhibition on the effect of America on World War I. So we first come through this door and are greeted up these stairs, which come here, and you face this room, which in this drawing you can see here. You come to stairs and you are outfitted with a Brody helmet, a gas mask. You're given a short test to see if you're worthy to be a soldier. Of course, everyone is admitted, and then you're given some food. So you walk out into the trench through here, and you see all these tough British people who have been hardened by the war for the past 4 years, and you're eating with them, and it's kind of crappy because through these shell holes there's like dirt and explosions and there's rumbling, and it's like a somber mood. And then when the instructors have noticed that everyone is done with their food, then the alarm bell is rung and everyone puts on their gas masks, and there's like fake smoke, and it's basically a simulation of a gas attack. And then there's also a machine gun battery here, some holes for shooting, and there's also a room which people can enter here. Here's the door. There are some bunks for the soldiers, and there's probably a fake rat, and you can see how the soldiers hung up their boots and their food to keep away from the rats and stuff. And basically through this they're getting a perspective on what life was like, and they're learning about like duck boards and things like that. So as I said, they go through here, and then they go back down when they're done, and then now is where they go through the rest of the exhibition. So the first section here is about what was happening previously. So the first American troops arrived in June of 1917, but no others actually arrived until June of 1918, and after that they started to come in at 10,000 a day, and most of their battle was from October to November of 1918, and of course it ended November 11th, so they didn't really do that much, or they weren't there for that long. But anyway, so basically this room is to set the precedent. So we see here that there are maps of before and after the Spring Offensive, also known as the Kaiserschlacht, which means the Emperor's fight. And then there's an overview of the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which is the treaty that got Russia out of the war because of their civil war, which was actually begun by Germany. But because of that, Germany could focus all of their forces on the Western Front, and also conveniently they had new technologies like the MP-18 machine gun, which were used by the Sturmtruppen, which sounds like stormtroopers. So they basically ran into trenches and stuff and caused mayhem with grenades and to lead the way for the rest of the troops. And then there's also the A7V Sturmpanzerwagen. It's like a smaller model, of course, so not to scale, but it's to show this is some technology. And then here there are 6 examples of operations. So Operation Michael, Operation Gilgete, Operation Mars, Operation Gneisenau, Operation Blucher York, and Operation Marne Schultenwem. So these are operations that the other Allied forces took place in, and the Americans had somewhat of a force in them. And here is a perspective drawing if you're looking from about here. Here's the tank, here's the stormtrooper, the maps, the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, and the operations. And then if you go to the right here, to the next room, this room is about basically the American side of it. So at first here you can see that the Americans declare war on Germany. And here's a perspective drawing. So we're kind of looking from that actual table. And then we see pictures of men. And so, here the AEF, the American Expeditionary Force charter, that's to raise an army, because they really, at the time, the army of the United States was smaller than Portugal. And, well, that's a laughing matter. And so, and then they have appointed General Pershing, and then this kind of a series of photos. So their men are enlisting. I think by the end of the year, they'll have 4 million men who have enlisted. And then there's a photo of them training, a photo, or you can also see here, so a photo of them landing in Port Saint-Nazaire in France. And then here are 3 operations that the Americans took place in. So the Meuse-Argonne offensive, Operation Saint-Mihiel, and the Aisne offensive. And then here is a big map of the kind of like push into Germany. And then to the next room we go. Through here, the next room is about what the soldiers had to face. So they first see these duck boards, which they will remember from their first experience here, the trenches. And from here, they'll learn why soldiers built them, and also they learn kind of the less nice things. So trench foot and sock problems, and why they wore puttees, which are these kind of like wrapped canvas things around their shins, and how they kept their boots clean. The influenza of late 1917, early 1918, and then the deaths of the Spanish flu, which ravaged people at the time. Actually, more soldiers died of the Spanish flu in 1918 than they did dying in the war. And there's some info on PTSD, which was a really bad thing back then. And we enter also from this perspective. If we look here, there's also the army fatigue of an AEF soldier and the 1903 Springfield rifle. And then the next room here is more about the kind of consequences of the war. So it starts off with the fall, like the crumbling of empires. So there are many, I think there were 4 empires that fell. And so here we see a map of Europe in 1914 during the La Belle Epoque. And then after the war, 1918, or more like after the Treaty of Versailles, and then after World War II, actually, to put it in perspective on how much the map actually changed. So, and then in the worldview, we can see how the colonies have changed, how America gained some overseas territories and Germany lost, and the British and French really gained. And then we see the Sykes-Picot Agreement, which divided up the Ottoman Empire. And then there is an overview of Wilson's 14 points, and the League of Nations, which will affect foreign policy for a very long time. And the Treaty of Versailles, which divided up Europe pretty much. And then the final image is some food for thought questions about regarding like, was it right for America to affect the map of Europe as they did? Because before the war and after the war, they were isolationist, and only because some actually more phony like sinkings like the Lusitania were sunk did they enter the war, and maybe the Zimmerman telegram, and they were maybe the Zimmerman telegram, but other things were not like the best reasons to join the war. And definitely Wilson's 14 points affected foreign policy in maybe not the best way for the people who were getting colonized and stuff. And the Sykes-Picot Agreement, under Ottoman influence, nations, the Arab nations, they're controlled by Ottomans. It's not that good, but at least they were all controlled by one power. And after this, Jewish people were introduced, and people were given their own nation states, except the lines were all wrong pretty much, and there were wars, and Kuwait was a thing, and blah 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 blah. It's very controversial, and now it's still dealing with the problems of the Sykes-Picot Agreement. And now that the Americans who have gone through this museum have learned what they have, they can munch on these ideas on the way home. And yeah, thanks for listening, and have a good summer.